Hello, this is Victor. I hope all is well. Today I want to talk about the importance of our attitude, because how we experience life has a lot or maybe everything to do with our attitude. Having the right attitude determines how we perceive life and our reactions in situations, whether they are negative or positive. And there is a book by one of my favorite authors, Robert Greene. It's called The Laws of Human Nature. He has also written Mastery, and Mastery is about people who became experts in their field. And he has also written The 50th Law, which I can also highly recommend. It's about the life of the rapper 50 Cent. And that book is really good if you want to improve your self-confidence and you want to become more self-reliant. But this book is called The Laws of Human Nature, and it's about people's behavior. And I think that is very interesting, like really interesting, and that's something I really want to learn more about, and that is something I really like to study. And it's really important in my job as well, because I work with kids who hasn't been to school for maybe 2 to 3 years, some of them. And it's very important for me to understand why this is. And try to understand their behavior so they can come back to school and then stay in school and then start to study a little bit and then start to study more and then to get good grades so they can apply for high school. So that's why I really like this topic, and that's why I try to really understand why people behave the way they do and why I behave the way I do. And this book is about people's behavior, and there is a chapter in the book, and this chapter is about our attitude and the importance of our attitude, and that is why I want to share that chapter with you today. And in the chapter is a story about the famous and successful writer called Anton Chekhov. It's a true story. And Anton was beaten almost every morning by his father. And after the beating, he had to kiss his father's fingers in order to be forgiven. And he also had to work in his father's really cold store in the afternoon instead of focusing on his studies, while his father was out drinking somewhere. And Anton was very bitter and angry at his father for a very long time. He couldn't understand why he got treated that way. But after a while he got sick of that story in his mind, and he really tried to understand his father. And when he really understood his father, and he came to realize that his father didn't know better. He did the best he could. His father was raised the same way, and look what a fine man he had become. Or that's at least what he thought. So it made sense to raise Anton the same way, because his father was also not allowed to pursue his dreams and goals, and so no wonder he became an alcoholic who beat him. And when he understood this, he came to love his father for who he was. And when he changed his attitude, everything else changed for Anton. He became a doctor and also a very famous and successful writer. But the two of his brothers, they couldn't forgive their father. They still blamed him, they judged him, and they still had a negative attitude towards the father. And they destroyed life with alcoholism and suicide. So what you get in life determines a lot on your attitude. And this is a choice. And Anton made a choice to change his attitude towards his father, and then he could move on with his life, and that's why he became a very famous and successful writer, instead of also destroying his life like his brothers did. So if Anton can change his attitude towards his father after that brutal upbringing, I think we can learn a lot from that story and let it inspire us to change our attitude towards the things that we feel. Because we all carry our luggage from the past, and this can really stop us from living the life we have the possibility to live. That's why I want to emphasize in this video how important our attitude is in our life. It might be the most important thing to work on. What is our attitude towards the pandemic, for example, the COVID-19? It's very different from person to person, and it affects us very differently. Personally, I haven't been affected that much by it, and I'm very grateful for that, of course. But I try to learn from other people how they deal with this situation. I like to observe how people deal with their loneliness, their fear, or their economic situations, and I'm very impressed and very inspired by a lot of business owners who are on the verge of bankruptcy, but they have this fighting spirit attitude, like they're not gonna give up no matter what happens. And it's very unfair, the situation right now, because the rules and regulations affects a lot of business owners very differently. And I have a lot of empathy for the restaurant owners because I've been in that business for 15 years. But I'm very impressed and inspired by them right now because they have this fighting spirit attitude. No matter what happens, no matter if the government closing down the whole thing, they still, I can feel it, like they really want to win this war, whatever it takes. And that is something I try to carry with me for when I meet obstacles, because obstacles gonna come. There is a saying that either you're in a crisis or you just came out of one, or you're heading towards one. That's life. And maybe it's maybe not the most positive look on life, but there is a lot of truth in that. And that is because we cannot control the things that happens to us. But what we can control, if we work on it, is our attitude towards the things that happens to us. That is the ultimate freedom, and that is something we can work on. And that is why I think that is one of the most important things to work on also. So how do we work on our attitude? There are a couple of things that we can do, and I think the best thing to do is to start with the small stuff, like the weather, for example. The weather, it is what it is, and don't try to let the weather affect your mood. Try to maintain a good and positive attitude even though the weather is not what you want it to be. And an exercise that I also like to do is to lie on my bed and relax for 15 minutes with some nice relaxing music or a guided meditation. And I close my eyes and I try to breathe very long breaths, and I try to feel and visualize an attitude that I want to live by. And right now I practice to have a joyful attitude because I work a lot, I work full-time on my job, and then I work a lot with this channel, and I can sometimes feel stress and pressure, and I don't want to feel that too much. I want to enjoy the process. So I want to have a joyful attitude even though I work a lot. So I try to balance that, because if I become too stressed and frustrated, it's not worth it. So I want to have a joyful attitude while I'm working hard. So that's something I practice right now, and also try to practice to have a flexible attitude, because I plan my day almost by the minute, you know. That's a little extreme. Like if someone says to me, Victor, I call you next week, and I say like, what time? Which day? You know, I have to plan it, you know. And so I'm not very flexible, but I try to work on that as well, because then you are more, you know, you can handle unexpected situations a lot better if you're more flexible. Otherwise you can also be very frustrated and bitter and like when things doesn't go your way. So that is also an attitude I like to practice. But you can play around with this, you know, you can play with different attitudes. Maybe you want to have a more like a determined attitude, like if you want to work out and sometimes, you know, you don't feel like working out, but your attitude right now is to be very determined, like you want to achieve the goal you have. So that's why you're working out even though you might not feel for it. And you can also practice to have a confident attitude. So if someone gives you a task and you don't feel too sure about yourself that you can handle it, you try to have this confident attitude that even though you're not sure if you can do it, you can still have a confident attitude while you try to do it. So I think you know, it's really nice and to play around with these attitudes, and that's why I like to do this exercise where I lie on my bed and listen to music or a guided meditation, and I really try to feel the attitude that I want to live by right now. Because when you have a greater feel for your attitude, you have a much greater power to move it in a more positive direction. So be aware of your attitude and work on this as much as you can. Because we can learn and unlearn anything. We can unlearn negative attitude and replace it by a more positive attitude if we work on ourselves and do these exercises. We can program ourselves into having a more positive attitude. That's why I think it's really good to start with the small things like the weather, for example, because it's easier to change our attitude towards the weather than towards the pandemic. But now, since the pandemic is here, we just have to deal with it the best we can. But that's everything I had to share for today. I thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. If you like this video, please click on the like button, and if you want to learn more about your body, mind and soul, subscribe to the channel. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.